Hello, world. This is Kevin from Fiction Factory, and you're listening to DC and DH on the DND Dynamite 80s podcast.
All right, guys. Another show coming your way with DC today. Before I introduce our guest, I wanted to give a shout out to DH. He is unable to be a part of the show today. He's getting over his surgery. So get quick very soon, buddy. Need to have you back. Our special guest today is joining us from England. 40 plus years in the business of entertaining folks. He's been a radio, TV songwriter, an author, just a very, very special person. And we appreciate you taking some time. That is Mike Reed joining us. Mike, how are you?
I'm good. Yes, thank you very much. I can't match that build up, but it sounded good to me.
Okay. All right. First of all, Mike, tell us what got you interested in radio and TV.
Well, radio, really. I mean, when I left college, I wrote a musical. I was writing poetry, doing a lot of songwriting. And I thought that was the way I was going to go. And it did. I mean, I've written a lot of books and a lot of songs, but radio came along in the form of a guy who said, I want you to be on my station. Neil for French Blake was an old Etonian, and he said, I want you to be on my station. And I said, what, you mean playing the guitar? He said, no, broadcasting. I said, well, that's not what I do. And he said, well, there are three reasons I want you on my station. He said, one, you're very English. Two, you're mildly eccentric. He said, and three, you're a bloody good opening bowler. And I said, what's that got to do with it? He said, you're going to open the bowling for my cricket team. And I said, I thought it was radio. He said, yes, we're having a cricket and a football team as well. So I really got in by being a fast bowler at cricket. And I said, don't you want to hear me? And he said, no, you'll be fine. And that was it. I didn't audition, no audition tape, anything at all. And I was in, and within, I guess, 15, 16, 17 months, I got the gig out of 2,000 people to join Radio Luxembourg. And under a year, I joined Radio 1, and then all the TV kicked in. So I guess I was lucky. You know, you could be, as you know, second or third in the queue when the door opens, and you could be telling people, I was nearly there. I was second in the queue. It could have been me. But luckily, I turned around and there was nobody in front of me.
Wow. Okay. My big question about the talent that's come out of the UK, and I've asked this to another guest that we had last month. Interesting comment he made, and I'm curious about yours. Why do you think there has been such success of so many talented people in the UK, in the music industry?
Well, the two main countries have been the USA and Britain. No question about that. I don't know. We've got a great musical heritage, of course, that we share through Appalachian music and the original people that came over to the States. A lot of Irish as well, a lot of Celtic music, a lot of Scots, a lot of Irish came to the States, a lot of English. So we have deep roots in music. And of course, you know, now so do the States as well. So I think maybe that's one thing, that we've always been a musical nation. I guess a lot of people have. But it's interesting because in the 50s, I think people were very much looking to America, you know, the Cadillacs, Elvis, the whole way of life, you know, suddenly the new appliances that were coming in, and everyone, wow, America's a really cool place to be. Suddenly in the 60s, Britain became a cool place to be. How that happens, I don't know. Maybe, you know, the 50s led by Elvis, the 60s here led by the Beatles and the Stones. Sure. So that was it. Also, I think we have some very, very good songwriters, as you do in the States. And I think that works. We sort of traded a lot of the time. You know, we look at back in the day what was big in the States, and then it became big over here. And then we had the British invasion. And the thing really not to underplay here is the power of our offshore radio stations between 64 and 67. Radio Caroline, Radio London, very, very important part. That about a third of the nation listen to each one, which is fantastic. And that really opened the door, because before, you know, there were a handful of people that the BBC thought were suitable for people to listen to and all the rest of it. And you like music maybe that your parents like. Suddenly it opened the door for songwriters, musicians, publishers, group singers, you know, wide open. And it created a massive industry. And that British invasion of the States So yeah, we've always been passionate about music, but as you know, it's opening up around the world now, and other people
Sure.
are doing it.
Sure. Okay, let's talk about some of those 80s special performers. I'm just going to throw you out a few, and whatever pops in your mind about what you think was successful for them, or what was one of the key ingredients. How about The Cure?
The Cure, yeah, The Cure came from left field. They actually came from Crawley, a land of many roundabouts. So how they ever got out of Crawley, heaven knows. But yeah, I remember my very first program on Radio 1. I had a Cure track in. I think A Forest was in my very, very first program. They've never been probably center pop. I mean, they've got some great records that have traveled through time. Friday I'm in Love, of course, still gets played a lot. But I think with a lot of bands like The Cure, you have maybe 3 or 4 that still get played, and some others, which I think is unfair, get sort of left behind, and people go, oh,
Yeah.
let's play that one. Radio stations go for the best known one or the second best known one, and the others just become detached and slip anchor.
Sure. How about Tears for Fears?
Tears for Fears, yeah. I mean, Kurt Smith and Roland Orzabal, I've worked with a lot. We had on the TV program a lot. So, you're coming through with these guys. So when you see them now at festivals, it's like old school reunion. It's like, hey, guys, oh, yeah. And because we've all mellowed a bit, there's not that element of perceived cool that there used to be then. It's like, we're managed, don't talk to them. Come and stand over here. The real Spinal Tap thing, don't talk to them.
Yeah,
you're higher than them in the charts. All right, okay. So all that has sort of dissipated, really. And we've all, I think, probably grown up a bit and mellowed a bit.
Yeah.
But no, Tears for Fears, great. And of course, you get several bites of the cherry. They had Everyone Wants to Rule the World. Then when we had that big thing that Everyone Wants to Run the World, so it's a hit all over again. And of course, you can hear influences in every band. I mean, every band will put their hand up, go, yeah, influenced by whoever it was, Elvis or Buddy Holly down. But Tears for Fears in Sowing the Seeds of Love. I mean, you can hear the Beatles in that, really.
Yes.
Which is great. So yeah, great band.
Okay. Let's go solo for a second. How about Howard Jones? One of my favorites.
Yeah, Howard, I think, did his first ever TV on my Saturday morning TV show. I think it was New Song. And yeah, I mean, again, Howard made some great records. He does the rewind circuit now. Initially, it's funny how a lot of artists like to work with someone. I'm not saying it's insecurity, but they used to, and he had this guy called Jed who used to be in Chains, this mime artist who he used to play with, that sort of took the spotlight away from Howard the whole time. And of course, George Michael was like that in Wham. And people said, well, Andrew's a lovely guy, especially, but why? He said, well, I like my mate to be with me because it's more fun. And David Grant in Link's the same. It's a little bit of a comfort zone to have your mate on stage with you. You can look at each other and laugh. You're not right out there in the front. Now, Howard started like that, and Jed soon went. But he had, some really, really good songs. And of course, this last year, exactly a year ago, I started the Heritage Chart. There were so many artists like Howard that were not getting a look in with their new material. Nick Kershaw, Kim Wilde, Howard Jones, Lamar, all these people were not getting a look in. And yet they were making some of the best songs of their life. Howard made a track just about a year ago called Hero in Your Eyes. And it was such a good song. And I said, this is as good as anything you've done. This is right up there, with your best songs. And he said, I know, but people aren't touching it. So I created the Heritage Chart, and Hero in Your Eyes was #1 in the Heritage Chart. So a year on, the artists are absolutely thrilled. It's on Wikipedia. Yeah. The Heritage Chart has arrived, and now they're talking about doing something on TV with it. So I was really pleased, actually. So, they could say, hey, we've had 2 #1s this year, or we've had 2 top 10s this year. And it's a really good alternative. And the songs in it, I have to say, are better than the national chart, which all DC have the same production value. So they sound, not wishing to sound like my dad, but they all sound a little bit similar. Well, my dad, they all sound the same, son. Yeah, they all sound a little bit similar, same because of the same production values.
Yeah.
And I think for national radio, what people tend to do is try and write something, produce something that will get played on the station. So you're trying to make something that's going to be put in the shop window, rather than doing something that you feel is you and good, and might get rejected. So that's a problem. So the Heritage Chart sorts that out, and say it's been good for Howard.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's go a little different. How about Judas Priest?
Judas Priest, there again, you see in the 80s, when we were doing Top of the Pops, getting big audiences. Now they like to focus on, certain aspects of music rather than a broad palette. But then you got a whole range of stuff in the chart. You had Judas Priest, you had Iron Maiden,
yes.
You had the rock bands in there. You also had UB40, Madness, doing that loose sort of reggae type stuff. You had the Police in there. You had Duran and Spandau, the new romantic side. I mean, it was so different. And pop stuff, Howard Jones, Kim Wilde. You had Shaking Stevens doing rock and roll. And nobody then was trying to be cool and saying, oh, we can't have them. They're not cool. They're not cool. Only these and only those. It was a very, very broad chart. You could have comedy records in which you probably wouldn't now. So you'd have Judas Priest next to a song by Orville the Duck, and then something by The Jam or something by Ultravox. And you'd have Ultravox at number 2 and Joe Dolce's Shut Up or Your Face at number 1. That nobody bought, of course. Everybody bought Vienna, but he didn't get to number 1. Nobody bought Joe Dolce, but he did get to number 1. Never quite sure how that happens, but no one will admit to it. No one will admit to buying a record like that.
Yeah. Good, great stuff. How about, of course, Duran Duran?
Duran Duran, I always say to people, I've said this to various people, to politicians, I said, it's the Duran Duran moment. And they said, what do you mean? I said, I'll explain what the Duran Duran moment is. I played Planet Earth, their first single, 40th anniversary right now, a couple of times on the breakfast show on Radio 1. And I lived in Weybridge, and I went with some friends for a drink to the Hare and Hounds. No longer there, I think it pulled it down now. But as always, people go, oh, Mike, oh, great. And they give you bits of paper to read out the following morning. Could you say hello to us? I said, yeah, okay, yeah. So I stick them all in my pockets. And some people used to throw them away. I religiously used to get them out and do them because I was like that. So I'd always get them out and do them. I didn't look at them. I shoved them in my pocket, about 40 bits of paper. And I thought, I'll do as many as I can tomorrow morning. And when my producer came in, I said, can you believe this? I said, virtually everyone, and they were all different people, different tables. It's not like a fan base. There was no fan base then for them, really. I said, they're all virtually a 38 out of 40 were for Planet Earth. I said, that's incredible. I said, do you know what? I said, this band are going to be enormous. And I refer to that as the Duran Duran moment, when you pull 40 random bits of paper out of your pocket and 38 are for Planet Earth. And you think, wow, that's it. That's it. That's the Duran Duran moment. And I said that to various politicians. I said, that's your Duran Duran moment.
Gotcha. Oh, absolutely. How about Genesis and Phil Collins?
Genesis. I've done quite a bit with them down the years. Mainly played tennis actually, because Mike Rutherford's got a rather good tennis court.
Okay.
So you get people on there. You get Eric Clapton playing. Andy Fairweather-Lowe, who's a really good player. Welsh standard. But yeah, I mean, they're Genesis are great from that big prog rock thing, and then I mean, big in the 70s and still there in the 80s and changing face, a bit like Fleetwood Mac changed face and became, went from a blues band to a pop band to an albums band, and Genesis did. I mean, initially prog rock. I mean, I know what I like in your wardrobe and stuff like that was off the wall stuff with no, I want to say Chrysalis, not Charisma, with the Charisma label. And I think that they were part of that early eccentricity of Charisma that was owned by a guy called Tony Stratton Smith, who was one of the last of his kind that go, you know what, darling, I fancy that, let's do it. Well, now they give you 20 reasons why they wouldn't do it. It'd be business now, but he was a larger than life character that said, yeah, Genesis, we like them, and they're all a bit off the wall, a bit prog rocky and out on a limb. But they came through, and of course, when Phil Collins went solo, the band kept going, and Phil had a great solo career. really did. I remember doing a special down at his house for him with radio and with all the guys really. But yeah, Phil, very talented guy, and they're still cutting it. I mean, they're still doing it, and I don't think you realize at the time that you're going to be a real part of history when you mention an era. You said Genesis. Oh yeah, they're sort of elevated to a certain status, but the albums, Lamb Lies on Broadway, all those. I mean, they're great albums from the period. I guess some of those things belong where they are. They don't travel. They probably wouldn't get played now on mainstream radio. I'd probably play some, but a lot of people go, oh yeah, well maybe the 80s hits, but not the 70s album tracks. Yeah,
right. Okay, well, growing up, here was a group that was kind of I don't know, for that time period was a shell shock to me. How about Culture Club?
Yeah, interestingly, George has just done a terrific single with Kim Wilde called Shine On.
Yes.
I mean, their voices blend so beautifully. I've been playing it this week. Their voices really, really blend on it. And I'm pleased George is back on track. I mean, he can wander off piste a bit sometimes. I particularly like the Jesus Loves You track he did, Bow Down Mister. I think it's a great radio record. Probably one of the only people that play it. Again, George, I think, had his first TV on our Saturday morning show. And the interesting thing I remember that everyone remembers was we had a young girl on singing. It was a 3.25 hour. It was the longest live show in the world. 3.25 hours, pop show, basically. And we had a young girl on who was singing. She had a record out, a bit of a novelty thing. And while I was doing stuff and people were phoning in all live, she was sitting on Boy George's knee. And she suddenly went and whispered in his ear. And he looked at me and went, oh. And she obviously thought George was a woman because he was dressed like that and he had his hair like that. And she was about 7 years old. And she asked George to take her to the toilet. And he said, I don't think I can. She said, yes, you can. Yes, I want to go to the toilet. No, I can't. And he was trying to explain that he was a bloke and couldn't take her to the toilet. But no, I mean, terrific. I mean, Karma Chameleon stayed at #1 for weeks and weeks and weeks. And the link there was that Judd Lander, who played harmonica with Culture Club, and he played later with Katie Melua and the Beach Boys. He played harmonica on Karma Chameleon. Judd, for years, did a puppet we had on my TV show. So while I was talking to Boy George, Judd, who played harmonica on Karma Chameleon, would have been lying underneath the desk doing this crow puppet. He's a Liverpoolian guy, talk like that, So we had this puppet that occasionally popped up. So so he'd have been there with George and the girl and me lying under the desk, and then played harmonica on Karma Chameleon.
Yeah. Another one that this is one of our favorites. How about the Police?
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, especially that with a band with 3 in, you think, what can they do? Jam, Love Sculpture with Dave Edmunds. And then when you listen to him, you think, wow, the sort of other bands have a second guitar and a keyboard, and yet they still sound full. And with the Police, sometimes it was what they left out. They left those spaces. It was like loose, or it appeared loose. It wasn't loose and easy. Of course, Andy Summers had already had a great career in various bands, Zoot Money and the Big Roll Band. He was very, very experienced guitarist, but it was a very different style. And I think with all these things, it's finding your niche, finding your sound. And as soon as they came on, it's the Police. You know who it is immediately. It's not like a lot of things now. You go, I'm not sure who it is. It sounds like somebody else from X Factor, but I can't think who. But the Police definitely distinctly had their own sound. And of course, Sting was a great writer. I mean, stuff he did as well, like Fields of Gold and Russians, were really good songs. So yeah, I mean, he was. I think he considered himself an artist. So he's pretty mellow a bit. So he considered himself an artist at the time, and actually took himself quite seriously. But why not? If you want to do what you do, I think at the time people maybe their PR, maybe their manager got around saying, look, if you want to make it, you've got to be this. And I guess that works when you look at the Spice Girls, okay, they can sing, but it was that standing with Prince Charles, the Union Jack thing, pinching his bottom, all those little things trigger to suddenly, rank you up in the mass media. And you become somebody that people want to talk about and talk to. So I think Sting was one of those. He was one of those sort of iconic figures. I think especially in playing the ace face in Quadrophenia, very cool character with a long black leather coat and king of the mods. I think he probably liked that role much in the same way as I imagine Noel Coward loved the role in the jail in the Italian Job. Noel Coward, where he walked down the stairs and hundreds of men are applauding him and singing England, going clap, 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 England. And Noel Coward spending himself walking down the stairs. And I thought, I bet he really, really enjoyed that. Yeah. And I think the same with Sting, probably as the ace facing Quadrophenia. It's like, yeah, I look like a really cool dude.
I want to stay with the trio. How about, and I had seen a YouTube video where they actually, at the time before they hit it big, they were backing up another artist, and I cannot recall that gentleman's name or that group, Bananarama.
Yeah, I mean, another great band. I mean, that again, I think Bono went through that thing of taking himself a bit seriously, and he got lampooned for it by the media a lot. That if you do what Sting did, stripped to the waist, and I'm going to save a rainforest. Well, that's great. We'd all like to do that, and I think it's a good idea. But it's the abiding image, and I think Bono went down that route as well. Of and the media would have a go at him and go, "Oh, Bono's going to save the world as he is the second coming," and all the rest of it. What he thought of that, how he took that, whether he meant it like that, I don't know. But it certainly delivered some good records, because that my thing will be playing the music, really, not worrying about what they thought personally, religiously, politically, unless you're doing an interview and you maybe touch on that if they want to. But even in interviews, you'd say to somebody like Bono, is there anything you don't want to talk about? Because there's no point in doing it. If somebody's going to clam up, then there's no point. But yeah, I quite like the early stuff of theirs. I mean, Angel of Harlem was one of my favorites. I think it's such a great radio record. Really, really good radio record, that. So yeah, I mean, they were, one of the most successful outfits, probably of the 80s, maybe along with UB40 and Madness. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, let me give you one more. Recently, he actually did a Super Bowl pre-game show. So he is still rocking it out. How about Billy Idol?
Billy Idol, it's very funny because, I mean, I know Bill, of course, when he made it, Generation X, and the band he was in before that, because we used to do Top of the Pops and what have you, and he developed the famous snarl. Yeah, I mean, I follow him on Twitter, so I see what he's up to in the States. Made some great records, and I think I got a silver or gold disc for White Wedding, which is nice because we played it on stage in our band as well. And yeah, in Dancing with Myself, Hot in the City, some great songs.
Yes.
And I saw the other day coming out of the supermarket, I thought, oh, hang on, he's become relevant again, because the environment here, I don't know whether they must have done a deal with him and the rights to use his name. But suddenly, when you think it's a long time since he's had a hit, and I come out of my local supermarket and there's a big poster of Billy Idol, and I thought, what? That's strange. And it's about switching off your car engine and not polluting the air. So it just says, is this snarl? This is Billy never idles, nor should you.
There you go.
He's obviously somebody, has thought this is a good idea. Maybe he's made a bit of dosh out of it. Hopefully he has.
All right. Let me go to another question for you. We interviewed Kevin Patterson from Fiction Factory last month.
Right.
And his comment I thought was very interesting. Let's talk about Top of the Pops here for a minute.
Yeah.
His comment was this: you knew, your family knew, your relations knew that you had made it if you got that call to be on Top of the Pops. So that's how much it meant to that group. can you give me some description about what that meant to the history of music in UK, having the Tops of the Pop?
No, he's absolutely spot on. Absolutely 100%. I agree with that totally. That you strive to make it, and you do almost anything to make it. If you look at two, latter-day icons, Bowie and Elton John, okay, the epitome of like cool rock and roll icons. But back in the 60s, they'd have done almost anything musically to make it. Bowie changed his style time and time again. You know, how can I make it? How can I be a star? Elton the same, nearly a star, not quite. Let's try again. How can I be a star? They wanted to be a star. George Michael signed a deal with CBS that then took 2 years out of his recording life because he wanted to get out of it. And they said, well, hang on, mate. You wanted to be a star. You signed this contract, but then suddenly when you become big, you don't want to sign that contract anymore. But if you hadn't signed it, maybe you'd have been nowhere. So it's always that difficult time. Do you sign or don't you sign? You think you're going to get ripped off, don't you? Because you want to make it. And it's absolutely right. The key thing is to, in your hometown, your family, your school, I'm going to make it. Oh, yeah. Tell us another one. And then when you get on Top of the Pops, you look down the barrel of that camera, you know, at the girl that junked you on a Saturday night, you know, all your mates that laughed at you, your father who said, you'll never make it, you long-haired layabout. You just look down there and go, you see, here I am. Yeah. And that was the Top of the Pops thing. Yeah. We've done it. We are here and we've made it. I mean, my paternal grandmother was totally bewildered, utterly bewildered. She's looking at the TV and there I am on Top of the Pops. And she doesn't understand how it happened or why it happened or why it happened to me, or it was, but you were just a long-haired lout in jeans and, you know, doing nothing, trying to write songs and going to parties and, you know, how did this happen? How did you suddenly get on Top of the Pops? So it was that moment. It's like you go home and go, see, he's exactly right. Yeah.
Wow. What an experience. Let me ask you this. During that 80s decade, what was some of the biggies from the States that were big there, UK?
Oh, there were loads. I mean, Belinda Carlisle, of course, had a whole ton of hits. Yeah, there were lots of artists that came over and had hit records. Whether they all came over or not was another thing. Because Bryan Adams, I know Brian's sort of Canadian, but Brian, I remember his first Top of the Pops. He just stood there before we went on, and it was full of, as Top of the Pops was, full of like, attractive girls. And Brian went, wow. He said, this is wonderful. This is what I've been dreaming of. Yeah. Part of that success of, a lot of people going, wow, look, it's Bryan Adams. Suddenly his first hit, and suddenly everyone's talking about him. And it's that excitement, I think. And I think for Americans, it was great to be big over here. And there were certain Americans, as we know, that almost became more accepted and more loved in Britain than certainly the Walker brothers and Scott Walker. Right. Certainly Jimi Hendrix, and going right back to rock and roll, Gene Vincent and Gene Pitney, of course, who almost became anglicized. Gene loved it when he broke borders, and to be big in England, which he was, absolutely loved it. And they took to the way of life in the 60s, I think. Certainly the Walker brothers, Gene Pitney, Jimi Hendrix, were often voted for in the British section of the polls. And the Walker brothers sometimes won it. And you think, hang on, they're not British, but they won the British section, which is quite weird. They were perceived as being British because they were bigger here than the States. I think, Buddy Holly the same, So, I think we adopted a lot of Americans who then, loved breaking it here. And the sad thing was, I guess, for Elvis, through Colonel Tom Parker, for whatever reasons, never came here or just landed briefly in Scotland. And you wonder what Elvis would have made of it and what we'd have made of Elvis. That there would now have been lots of interviews from back in the day with Elvis, which is incredible.
Yeah. Let's talk about current stuff. I know you got a lot on your plate. just I think you're wrapping up some Shakespearean readings. Tell us what's going on and some future stuff.
Okay, yeah, I do a lot of audiobooks. I mean, I write a lot of books as well. I'm doing Steve Cropper's autobiography with him. I'm doing a book for the Buddy Holly Foundation.
Oh, wow.
Various things. Last week, I was doing some audiobooks on Shakespeare, so 5 Shakespeare plays. And then yesterday, 100 Shakespeare sonnets. I chair the British Plaque Trust. We put up blue plaques to people who've done something unique for their country. And the blue plaques have been going since the late 1860s. And we're still doing it now. And I've taken it into the Commonwealth for the first time as well. Because I thought that would be good. 2.4 billion people, 53 countries or whatever. I think we should take it into the Commonwealth and be more diverse. So we have. A lot of songwriting. I've been writing quite a bit. I write with different people, but I've been writing with Phil Springer. Now, Phil Springer had his first hit in 1949, and he wrote Santa Baby.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And he's written a lot of hits in his time. I think his last big lyrical collaborator was Yip Harburg, who wrote The Wizard of Oz. That shows you how long he's been doing it. He's 95. Phil's 95 now. And he's still a great pianist.
Amazing.
And I've been working with him as a lyricist. And when he said, "Hey, Mike, Yip might have done this here, or Yip might have," I said, "Fine, that's great. I'm happy to step into the shoes of Yip Harburg, who wrote The Wizard of Oz." Absolutely brilliant. But it's lovely. I mean, it's great that he's still keen, still wants to write. And you don't stop. I mean, Irving Berlin was 101. I mean, songwriters seem to go on forever. You don't stop writing songs. Nobody gives you the golden handshake. It says, "Go away and don't write anymore, and don't come through the factory gates against Sonny." That's it, So, yeah, for me, I do a lot of things. Play quite a lot of tennis. Write songs. Musicals. We've got another new musical going out soon. So
fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a sort of bit of I'm not a workaholic, but I'm a multitasker, and I find that fun and I find it easy. So, that's good.
That's a talent. That's a talent for sure.
Yeah.
How can folks kind of follow you? What's some ways to kind of keep in touch with you?
Well, I'm on Twitter. Twitter is Mike Reed.
Sure.
Mike Reed at Mike Reed UK. That's
Okay.
READ.
Right.
READ. An easy name to misspell.
Sure.
Mike READ UK. I'm on Facebook, but I guess Twitter is the main one. And of course, it works really well on there because we're doing the Heritage Chart, and we go to chart site heritagechart.co.uk with all the charts on, this week's chart on, and you can vote as well. So if you're a Mickey Dolenz fan, he's in the top 10. If you're a Tiffany fan, she's in the top 10. So yeah, I mean, you can vote for these people on there. So it's a people's chart, really. Yeah. And the first different chart since the inception of the charts here in 52, which is basically a sales chart. Now it's a sort of streaming chart. So it's the first real alternative. So we're on there, heritagechart.co.uk or on Twitter. So yeah, you can see what I'm doing on there.
All right. Fantastic. Mike, we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. And,
Enjoyed it very much.
It's good. I love the high school photos. I think it's wonderful. I love those. Yeah.
All right. Brilliant. Take care and the best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. And guys, that'll wrap us up. We want to thank our guest, Mike Reed, again for joining us this morning. Well, afternoon for him. And DH get better very, very soon. Once again, guys, take care of yourself and each other in every way possible. And we will see you next time on the podcast. Take care, my friends. Thank you.